This week on the Yoakum Strength podcast, we had on Coach Cam Dietz. Cameron is the Assistant Director of Sports Performance for the University of Cincinnati and works primarily with the baseball and golf teams. Throughout the episode, we talk about having data to back up your claims and drive athlete intent, the math equation of stealing bases, why pitchers should still bench press, and how to properly manage high-speed volume throughout the season for all players. This was another incredible episode from Cincinnati coaches, and as always, thanks for listening.
Before we hit the intro music, I wanted to introduce to you guys the Yoakum Strength Insider. The Yoakum Strength Insider is our online training platform that takes all of the ideas that we talk about on this podcast and implements them into a program that is available to you at the touch of your fingers. Our goal with the Yoakum Strength Insider is to create better movers, to level up your life, and to move forward from where you are. We do this in a holistic fashion. Not only will you receive a program that has helped hundreds of people become better movers, you'll also receive access to our app that allows you to track everything, has video links for all exercises, and allows you to be in constant communication with the Yoakum Strength coach. Along with this, you'll get our 30-page PDF nutrition and lifestyle guidelines. That includes everything from what to eat, how much of it to eat, why we're eating it, meditation habits, and other lifestyle habits that we implement with our clients to really level up their lives. If you're interested in trying out one of these programs, use podcast 25 in the discount section right before you pay for 25% off your first program.
Boom. This is the Yoakum Strength Podcast. Take the leap down the rabbit hole with us as we interview elite level guests to unravel what high performance really is.
All right, Coach, welcome to the podcast. Excited to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I just dove deep into your Instagram page. Everything rotational power, everything baseball, everything I'm currently interested in with my pursuit of slow pitch softball mastery. So I think we are going to be able to get into the weeds a little bit here. My question to start off, you talked about how when you were still playing, how did you get into the strength conditioning world with a baseball background? Like what is that combination? Because I am currently working with a group of high school baseball guys. And there has been no group that has made me want to retire from strength conditioning more than my baseball athletes that I work with. Because for some reason, they will be 147 pounds as like juniors in high school, throwing like 70, and they will still refuse lifting a weight. And I'm like, dude, how is this the culture of this sport? But how did you get into like transitioning from that culture into like a get after it, like strength coaching mentality culture?
Yeah, I wanted to play pro ball like everybody else, and then I'm not. I just quickly realized that I'm just kind of dog shit at the sport relative to like what actually is required to be a pro. So then I was like, well, shit, like I love this so much. How do I stay involved? And athletic training is not for me. I'm not a ankle taping, drive you to the doctor and fill your prescriptions and stuff for you. So like kudos to them, but that's just not me. And then I just really kind of just fell in love with lifting. I was also probably undersized. I don't think I really started lifting until my senior year of high school. And I think in my senior year of high school, I actually had my driver's license for a while. I went from 185 to 215 in my senior year. So,
Yeah.
and I was not doing smart shit. I was doing pyramid sets on a leg press like every other day. I don't think I really benched until, I don't know if I really benched until like grad school, honestly. Like that's still like a big like no, right? Like people talk about that all the time. So I got into it because I love the sport, but and I wanted to be in pro ball, but I just have a bigger impact in college. You know, I can help guys I think achieve more and have bigger jumps, where I feel like once you make it to the pro level, it's very much like keep these guys available. And here I can still push a little bit, move the needle. Not to, there's definitely some things that we do that are a little more conservative at this level, even compared to other schools I've been at. But yeah, I just want to stay involved with the sport, and I just knew I wasn't a good enough athlete to play. So how else can I stay involved? And this was it. So.
And when you're working with athletes now, you have such a sport that is obviously it's a very big skill sport, right? Like there is a lot of skill that goes into hitting a ball and pitching a ball and throwing a ball hard, right? How do you find the balance between the skill required to do those things and the physical outputs to like express those things. And because I do believe it's like you have somebody like me who has spent a lot of time in the weight room and I can't throw a ball worth of shit. I'm on a journey right now, though. We're on a journey to throw 85 miles an hour. So we are working on that process. But you have the full on like side of the meathead things, and then like the skill warriors use people like me who just like my issue is I'd never played baseball. I haven't thrown enough balls, right? Like that's my issue. But they'll be like, it's the strength training that is the reason that you can't throw the way that you need to throw or like as fast. Look at me, I can throw this over here. And then you have like where they don't lift at all. So like how do you balance those two things and what you want to work on with the athletes, especially when they do have a pushback of, well, I can throw 90 miles an hour and not bench 135.
Yeah, I mean, I do think there's a fine line. I think like even if you get on Twitter right now or right after the World Series, there's a lot around the Dodgers, pitchers, especially the Japanese ones, but even the ones that are there like Sasaki to Shohei, like you look at the two of them, there's tons of videos of Shohei Ohtani deadlifting like 700
I was
pounds.
gonna say he's a freaking
Like
monster. That's a terrible
yeah,
person to
he is.
pick.
Yes, he's a monster. But then you've got the guy that closed for them that just started. Let's see, started game 6 and then closed game 7 for them and ended up with the win and World Series MVP and all this stuff. And then everybody the next day, all the anti-lifters get on social media and they're like, look, like this guy doesn't do anything. All he does is mobility and he throws javelin and he does all this, he doesn't lift any weights. Without throwing anybody particularly under the bus, I know for a fact that there were conversations about whether it was him or the other, there's a younger kid too. There's 3 guys that they have like on their pitching staff that are all from Japan. And I know for a fact that they are starting to encourage them slash not force, but do move towards that of getting them in the weight room because they've had injuries and they've had an injury history. And the Dodgers, I think, as an organization, understand and realize the importance of general strength training and the hopeful reduction in injury. And I mean, that's well documented across name the sport. That's pretty obvious, right? At this point, it's pretty well documented. And yeah, bad shit can happen. But like even the Dodgers are like trying and pushing these guys towards doing that because at the end of the day, like we pay you 10, 20, $30 million a year. Like we need you to be healthy. We need you to be available. And they were banged up this year. So granted, they win the World Series, whatever. And I think it's great that he does all this mobility work. And I think that that's important and being able to move your body and understand how you move and where you are in terms of space and spatial awareness and the gymnastics pieces of the things that he does and whatever, like all those things are valuable. But at the end of the day, you got to produce force and you got to do it quickly. And it's great that he can do a lot of those things without a bunch of traditional strength training, but his specific training of throwing a javelin or weighted balls or whatever is an example of changing loads and using and utilizing force and rate of force production to elicit the adaptation of throwing the ball harder. So whether it's a 800-pound deadlift or a 135-pound bench, like at the end of the day, what can I do in my job, in my world of trying to get guys to understand that we're chasing general adaptations that are going to, over time, lead to either a more proficient, sustainable body or actually drive adaptation and increase range of motion, increase force production through different ranges of motion and so on. So
Yeah, dude, that sounds badass. I haven't checked out any of that guy's training about with the javelin and stuff, but that does kind of lead into a question where I don't know if it's a trap or a bad thing or what. I just want to hear your thoughts on it, where it's like it is such a specific task of like let's just stick with pitchers, right? Like I mean, hitters you have it as well, but like it almost turns into like the strength coach turns into another skill coach in some regards. You know what I mean? Like it turns into like doing javelin throws and like it's only rotational power. Like how do you find the balance of using some of the means of like the specific strength tasks that you can work on? Let's say maybe you are throwing a javelin. I mean, I guess you could even do like a med ball. It's obviously way down on the specificness of that. But like, how do you balance that without getting lost as like just being another skill coach and not like building any of the general base that they need and maybe giving them some cookies and what they want to do, especially with some of the rotational work that you're doing? Like, where do you draw that line? Where do you draw the line between that's not my job or I can help them doing some of this rotational power stuff without drilling down into some of the skill stuff?
yeah, I mean, I want everything. Every time that somebody comes in, I'm always going to have a reason for what we're doing. If it's reverse lunge or it's an overhead med ball throw or it's a dynamic rotation or if it's dead bugs, like I'm going to give you the reason for it, right? dead bugs we're going to do because I want to just general strength, core strength and activation before doing, heavier trap bar deadlifts or something. And so it's like, look, when we do dead bugs, we typically do a better job of recruiting our, oblique sling and whatever else bullshit and core bracing essentially. And we just have less issues when we trap bar deadlift. Cool. So here's my reason, right? I want to rotate fast. How do I do that in the weight room and then give you some sort of resistance to be able to do that against? And why does that benefit you? Like a lot of these guys, are they rotation like dominant, or are they weight transfer dominant, tall fall? Like there's a lot of different verbiage that, again, a pitching coach is going to use, or more specific. I think the biggest thing for us here is that we have a really good working relationship between the pitching staff, the hitting coach, the hitting staff, and then myself as well. And then looking at and identifying guys and markers where it's like, can this guy move a little bit better? Do you see this downstairs? I'm seeing it out here. What does that look like on your end? Is there something that we can do to work on that? So there's just a lot of collaboration and communication between like the coaching staff, I think, here. And so that's really valuable. I don't get too far into the weeds specifically on like arm care, on any specific exercises that we do or don't do, any mechanical work that we do or don't do. I work with the athletic trainer to go through like a movement screen, and we'll measure hip IR, ER, shoulder, hamstring flexion, hip extension. We're going to measure all these things, and we're going to see like, are there any big red flags that pop up, and then are there things that we can do in order to not only work around that or help benefit that in the weight room, but also what can we do in terms of like correctives or additional X needs to try and help correct some of these things. Sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't, but like at least we're attempting to make that change. But you're right, like the sport of baseball, whether hitting, pitching, even fielding ground balls, like it is so skill dependent. I think the biggest goal for me is to say, this is what we're doing and this is why, and that helps create that buy-in and that intent for it. And then I do a ton of like background kind of researching and correlating numbers and things. So if I can look at our force plate data and I can tell you that squat jump propulsive impulse not directly, but as very strong correlate to exit velocity, guys are like, cool, what do I got to do to get better and produce more propulsive impulse in my squat jump? And then from there, I just instantly get that kind of buy-in. So that's my goal with it, is to try and kind of take that route.
That last example was kind of perfect lead into my next question. With all this sports tech and all these different positions and wanting to get athlete buy-in, what are some of the, I mean, you don't have to give away all the free lunch if you don't want to, but what are some of the key metrics that you look at? Because that was one thing from the sports science department, is a lot of this new technology gives out so many different metrics, and people are always trying to prove their worth or like prove their value. And it ends up kind of, sometimes people get a little too complex and it's like you're almost chasing nothing versus like, hey, I'm just going with just the most basic. Like, what are some of the metrics that you would use or deem important enough to track for these different positions and these different players?
Yeah. Well, and to your point, I think if you ask all 30 major league clubs, 10 of them are going to tell you this one metric is the best. 5 of them are going to tell you this one. 7 of them are going to tell you this one. And then, the last 10 are going to tell you something different. I would say that I know that what I have found, me personally, direct numbers are a bunch of propulsive impulses. Like anything propulsive or concentric is going to be probably a better indicator than anything braking. Not to say that we don't do eccentric work or we don't value it, but in terms of braking RFD and all these other things, that does not correlate to exit velocity and outputs. And it makes sense. Like I'm trying to accelerate an external load, whether it be a 30-ounce bat or a 5-ounce ball. My braking force is, going to help me safely slow down after release or after finishing my swing, like follow through. But in that moment of actual propulsion is like the value that matters the most. So any kind of momentum, impulse, and it's always propulsive. And then the other thing that I've found with my numbers specifically is squat jump translates better than counter movement jump. So taking that counter movement out of the jump has I guess resulted in better correlation statistically to our exit velocities and our throwing velocities as well.
With that, do you do any arm swing, or is it a hands-on hip squat jump, or how do you determine what to do for that?
Always hands on hips, because I'm just truly trying to isolate the lower half. On the flip side, and this is actually something I woke up in like a cold sweat in the morning at like 3 a.m. like 4 days ago, because that's, I guess, what I do in my life. But I was thinking to myself, I need to start doing like some type of push-up test just to see. I just want to see like what is our peak propulsive force or something in a push-up, like a plyo
Like a
push-up.
plyo push up on the mat.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was
yeah,
wondering about that too because like
yeah,
when you shake some of these baseball players' hands, it's almost like shaking a climber's hand. Like it's a different strength in that hand. It's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah. And so we do grip strength, right? We use Flex Pro Grip specifically for our pitchers, and it literally is just
And that's
finger.
the finger one, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, that one's dope. Have you, Evan, you've noticed a lot of cool stuff with this? I saw I was talking to Medicine Through Movement about this.
yeah. So like, I think that one's really interesting because I think what you'll see is like you've got guys that legit have like deficiencies in fingertip strength,
Yeah,
and and from their research, I'm not going to claim anything because it's not my research, right? But they've claimed and found that like if guys can't achieve a certain ratio of strength, they're just more susceptible to injury. And
interesting.
so if you can strengthen those really specific movements in terms of flexion, extension, pronation, I'm sorry, not pronation, ulnar and radial deviation. If you can strengthen those things, you're at least setting yourself up to be a little bit more less susceptible to injury and stuff. But I agree with you. Like we test grip strength, and yeah, typically my guys like there was a recruit that came in, and he is every bit of like 6'7". Luckily, he signed, massive hands. And I literally shake his hand and I look up at him and I'm like, where the hell did they find you, you big old son bitch? Like, where did you come from? And please sign. Um, and he did. And I literally every day I see him, I'm like, oh, you big old son bitch, what are you doing? You know? So um yeah, I mean, like, and that's the thing is, a lot of these places they'll also say body weight correlates. Yeah, like that makes sense. Like if you have higher body weight, your impulse is gonna be higher. And that's the biggest thing that I've found with my stuff and my research and numbers that I've looked at. And I think but then you try and ride that fine line. Like you've got some guys that don't have the frame for certain body weight. And then you have some guys that just need to gain weight, like your 147-pound high school kids. Like that's the great example. Like you throw 70 miles an hour, but it's not because your mechanics are bad. It's because you don't have enough size to even produce the impulse required to accelerate the ball to a level that would get you on a college team anyways, right? So what came first, chicken or the egg? I think at the end of the day, you got to produce force. You got to do it quickly. The other thing that was really interesting, and before we jumped on or before we started recording, you had talked about the rotational swing. The strongest correlation that I have to exit velo from this fall is our like data with that. So I think we can get into the weeds of like, is rotational power a thing, or is it just power that is displayed rotationally? And I think that those two things are different, and I can understand that or agree with that. But at the end of the day, if I can produce more power in a swinging motion, then my bat speed's probably going to be higher. And what I've found is that our exit velocities are higher. So
Do you publish any of this stuff too? Like I know with like it seems like you're very technical, you're like very detail oriented, and you're getting like data that's seemingly meaningful. I feel like a lot of teams don't want to just put that out there because they're like, okay, this is like what helps make our team better and like helps make our program more effective. But also, a lot of coaches like to put out social media and like their science and really well-developed approach to bring in recruits or bring in talent. Is there like a fine line of you guys keeping stuff to yourselves versus putting it out there?
um so I'm all about like furthering the field. I mean, one of the reasons that I do social media and like most of it's educational. Um like the two routes that I look at for social media are um the guys like to see themselves posted, right? Like they like it. It's a way to hype them up and kind of like feed into their egos a little bit and stuff. And like they enjoy that part of it. And then the other piece is like the educational piece. Um, I've been running a lot of these numbers and I'm just trying to figure out what way or format or what would work the best for putting it out there. Um, I think anybody that wants to do a little bit of it, like if you're a college strength coach, you're probably trying to figure out some kind of passive income or side hustle and thing. And so that's kind of where I'd like to go with it, is to be able to have like a course or whatever. But I also probably need to gather even more information, because your data size matters. And these numbers specifically are like what we're good at and what it correlates to. But at the same time, maybe there's other places that do uh, different tests, or even Vald versus Hawken or whatever. Maybe they're going to have different values that maybe do or don't match these correlations. I'm pretty confident in it because I've got all of the numbers for multiple semesters and a lot of data. And I literally, like you said, you go on Hawken and you have them do a counter movement jump, and I think there's like 100+ metrics on it. I ran every single metric and compared every single one statistically to our exit velo for our EV50, which is 50% of hardest hit balls, and then our average fastball velocity, and then our peak fastball velocity. And I ran them all. And anything that really stuck out, I kind of kept and highlighted, and then from there, I've been, I use it for recruiting and stuff like that as well. And then having presentations and stuff like that available for recruits, prospective student athletes, anything like that. Coaches, obviously, if they want to see progress in those particular areas. So I know that's a roundabout way of saying, like, I want to do something with it. I just haven't figured out what to do with it. But I've been dragging my feet, I guess. So.
Dude, I want to pull you back into the weeds here and ask you a little bit about that propulsion versus like deceleration. Does that change based off like, because you brought up rotationally dominant versus like a weight transfer dominant type athlete? Does that change per athlete? So like myself, I'm a big weight transfer guy, like really bad at the rotational piece, really good at the weight transfer piece. And one of the things, and I'm that's why I want to hear you like talk about it. But one of the things that has really helped me on my swing is actually like focusing on a lot of deceleration stuff, to where like I'm accelerating body and then decelerating at the right time to let that back go through. And maybe that's just a little bit more like technique on the swing and what we're doing. But like it was like a 7 or 8 mile exit velo PRs for me when I'm doing that, versus like when I'm like bleeding out around, really good at accelerating, really good at the propulsion piece, but not really good at like getting that through. I'm interested in like that piece of things. Does that matter with the rotation versus the weight transfer? And like, how does that like all tie in? Because it makes sense to like, you have to be able to go, but it's kind of crazy to me that the deceleration piece, this like stopping it so everything else can kind of finish through, doesn't apply to that exit velo. Or maybe it's like a different metric. That's what I'm wondering.
I think it'd be a way of measuring it that's not like, again, all of your braking force metrics that you're looking at in, let's just say, a counter movement jump, are all about how well do you stop your own body weight as you're lowering into the jump. So like when you're doing that, or as you're essentially lowering yourself down and stopping yourself to then change direction on the way on the counter movement, does that translate as well or is that a measurement accurately of, if I'm here and I get that front foot down and I can rotate against that hip, and the way that essentially my back leg stops, this generates force into the front leg, and this internal rotation leads into this internal rotation. And it's almost like the analogy that I like to use is like, you've got a bowling ball in a car, like in the front seat of your car. You're driving 90 miles an hour. If you run into a brick wall, the bowling ball will continue to travel forward at 90 miles an hour. If you slam on the brakes and you slow down from 90 to 50 miles an hour, the bowling ball will go 80, 70 miles an hour. If you slowly slow down on the brakes, the ball is going to, roll forward at 10 miles an hour or whatever, right? If you go really slow from point A to point B. So really, like, what you're talking about is transferring weight from the back to the front leg, whether it's pitching or hitting, and being able to get on and have like a stiff front side. Like that's a term that, like, I guess would be used mechanically or skill wise, right? Having that stiff front leg, or being able to brace over that front leg upon ball release or upon contact with the ball, those are the things, and those are timing mechanism. So I think that the way that we are measuring it on a force plate in terms of what is this guy's braking force, it's not the right test to be able to tell that.
Interesting. Yeah.
And so if you could do it where it's like, hey, we've got in-ground force plates in a batter's box, or on a mound, how much force does this guy create eccentrically or braking upon foot strike and then at release of the ball.
That'd be badass.
That is probably where you're going to find guys where it's like, holy shit, this guy is a really good decelerator, or he's got a really stiff front side, or when he lets go of the ball and that internal rotation from the back leg hits the front leg, his eccentric or braking force absolutely explodes or spikes. That's probably where it is. But from what I've seen, there's no braking metric on a jump that's gonna dictate that. On the flip side, I will say that I've done quite a bit of like depth drop, like depth landings, altitude drops and stuff like that. And the guys that are really, really stiff and great at absorbing force are guys that throw really, really hard, harder than they should based on their body weight. I have not run numbers on that because we've done altitude drops. Typically we'll go like 30 inches. And then if guys have like 10,000 plus newtons, I'll let them continue to add load because it's easier in our situation to add load than it is to add height to an altitude drop. And so when we're doing that in the off season, we're doing it on force plates because I want them to have that feedback. And the guys that have really stiff, loud, aggressive landings that are really rigid, and as soon as their feet hit the ground, everything stops. Those guys throw absolute fuzz, and most of them weigh significantly less than maybe some of the other guys that throw a little bit harder.
That's
like I can think of one guy. We've got one guy, right-handed pitcher. He's always been undersized, but right now he's 183 pounds, and he's coming back from like a little he's doing some rehab with his elbow and stuff, and he pulled down 103 miles an hour. And off of the mound, off of a flat ground, I want to say I heard that he was throwing like 95. And he's a guy that I literally have a video of it, of him with 45 pounds in each hands off of 30 inches landing. And I think it's like 15,000 newtons of force, eccentric force. And you're like, and he literally lands and he looks at me and he's like, should I go up? And I'm like, yeah. Like, you're good. Like, it's solid. Like, you're landing, and like his time to stabilization's like 0.2 seconds. Like, it's all these like metrics that you can look at with like altitude drop or drop landing or whatever. Like, you look at it and you're like, yeah, solid, you know? So yeah, I do think there's something there for, in terms of the skill side of the transferring of weight from the back leg to the front leg. Even guys that are rotational, they have to be able to accelerate into rotation and then be able to stop it eventually. Because if they don't stop it eventually, they're going to literally break, right? So, and that goes back to the whole like building the brakes, and why for so long, like when I was coming up in strength and conditioning in baseball, the adage was, for every push that you do, you got to do 2 pulls.
Yeah, I forgot about that one, dude.
Or 3, right? And I was doing like interviews with like major league teams for minor league jobs way back in the day, and they would talk about 1 to 2 or 1 to 3 pull to push to pull ratio. Pulls. Yeah. And like, we have to have that volume, right? Or we have to have, and it's like, well, is the volume or the intensity? Like at the time it was volume. We got to do more pulling because you got to have strong brakes, because if you can't slow down your own arm, then your body won't allow you. The adage is, if you can't slow it down, your body's not going to allow you to accelerate at a speed that your body knows that it can't slow down. So in theory, it makes sense. In practice of 1 to 2 or 1 to 3, I don't really do that personally. And we're fine. So they're pretty equal. But yeah, no, I think it comes and goes. Everything comes and goes in waves, especially with baseball.
Dude, I remember a program we were running where it was like, the coach was kind of stealing from the winning warm-ups and the 2-to-1 ratio, but it was like 4x25 band pull aparts and 4x25 face pulls before he even started the workout. I totally forgot about that 2-to-1, the magic ratio right there.
Yeah. Well, and all that, and all, again, like, it's the volume, right? It wasn't the intensity of this weak ass band pull apart for 100 reps. It's like, yeah, that's going to move the needle for me. And like, I get it, but yeah, no, it's just a more volume to have more volume at that point. So.
No, dude, I could talk to you about this stuff all day. I'm a geek about rotational power. I want to hear about, do you have, so you talked about the rotational and dominant versus weight transfer type people. You have the pitchers versus like fielders versus like hitters. do you bucket these people separately, or when they come into you, is it like a, hey, we are training this way as like general athletes, general humans? Do you have certain time periods when you're working on spacing apart these athletes? Like, how do you work with that? And then do you ever give them like a, like, yeah, the pitchers live separate of everybody else, but like it's kind of basically the same thing, just giving them a piece of candy?
I think there's a lot of similarities, but there is quite a bit of individualization, and it depends on what time of year and how individualized we want to get. Generally speaking, again, force done fast. Uh, Everybody sprints, everybody jumps, everybody throws med balls, everybody lifts heavy lower body, upper body, in multiple planes. And so we check all these boxes, right? The individualization comes primarily from timing. Our pitchers will always lift after practice, and our hitters will lift before practice most vast majority of the time. Um, the hitters, it's easier to get them in after practice. Or I'm sorry, hitters, it's easier to get them in before practice, before classes, all that stuff. So it's just literally an ease thing. If they lifted right before practice, if they lifted right after practice, I'm fine with that from a scheduling standpoint. One way or the other, I think we can get around it. I think hitters have consistent workloads outside in terms of they field, they do base running, and they hit. And that's really consistent. Some days they do a little less of or a little more of one or the other. And we communicate about that and we figure out, again, like the only thing that changes then for me is, do I need to sprint them or do I not? Are they going to get it in practice or are they not? Do I need to go out there and get it in their warm up? Does it need to be a part of my time? Um, so that's hitters, and it's pretty consistent. The pitchers are where it gets pretty damn individualized, and it's because of their throwing schedules. So at any given time, I might have at a minimum of 3 different pitching lifts going on, but it's because of their throwing schedule. So our heaviest or highest intensity days are always going to be done after their highest intensity throwing session. So if their throwing bullpens are live, I want them to have their heaviest, hardest, most difficult, high CNS, whatever, however you want to coin it. That needs to be their heaviest, hardest, most difficult day, because I want them to have as much recovery in between as possible. And I think a lot of times if you have, let's say you throw a bullpen on Monday, and then Tuesday you come in and do a soul crushing heavy lift because it's fall ball, right? And it's not as important as spring and we still got to develop. And then Wednesday's your only day to really recover. And then Thursday you're bouncing back and you're throwing live to hitters. If I can get that heavy lift in on Monday, I can do my recovery day on Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, I can do a light, explosive kind of CNS prep type, whatever, fast, dynamic effort. Again, coin it however you want. Let's just do something like quick 30 minutes, get in, get out, feel yourself, feel good, kind of buzzing a little bit. And then Thursday, go out, throw live to hitters. It almost adds a whole extra day of recovery. So that's why I try and stack those days. And because of that, we've got 3 different groups, essentially. You've either got a heavy day, you've either got a recovery day, or you've got like, I'm going to throw tomorrow. And those are kind of our 3 days that we kind of rotate through, especially in the spring or in the fall season. In the off season, the programs look hella similar because it's really, we're just going to grind this out. Our off season this year legitimately was 3 weeks, essentially, here on campus, where I know that they're going to be here. They're all here as a group. Fall ball ended. We have 3 weeks. So it's not this long off-season period where you get to do this strength block or a triphasic eccentric block into an isometric block, or, we don't get that, So that's the individualization. And then the last piece I talk about individualization is probably with our counter movement jump. I did kind of an eccentric utilization ratio, not rate, and looking at how well guys either produce force concentrically or eccentrically. And then I individualize their plyometrics a little bit with that, along with individualization with their RSI score. So like guys that have lower RSIs, they're going to start with more rudimentary, extensive plyometrics in the weight room. And then the guys that have really high RSIs, they're going to do more intensive plyometrics earlier on. And then the same thing could be said for our, braking or propulsive forces. What is the shape of our counter movement jump graph? What does it look like? Is it early bimodal? Is it late bimodal? And then from there, are we trying to raise the braking peak, or are we trying to raise the propulsive peak? And then from there, we're kind of individualizing that a little bit. I know that's a lot to unpack, but those are kind of where we do a little bit of individualization and stuff. But for the most part, like I said, hitters are really consistent because their practices are consistent. Pitchers are really individualized because each practice for a pitcher is going to be pretty individualized.
A piece you just touched on in that whole thing was their running and their sprinting. And I liked how you talked about, hey, am I going to need to sprint them during my time? Or is this something they're going to get during practice? Or basically, how do I want to dose this in? Could you touch on more of the specificity of like the conditioning of their speed work, of their running work, and how you tie that all into their strength programming and their actual skills and baseball programming as well?
Yeah. So ideally, our highest speed work is done on our like high days. Um, if I know that my high day is going to be, let's say, most of fall ball, we went Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I'm a big fan of like an undulating model where Wednesday is going to be our highest day. If I get with, we have a staff meeting every week. If I know that we're going to do a bunch of base running on Wednesday, I'm not going to put in my sprints on that day. I'm just going to cut them out, or I'm going to make sure that we hit in our warm up, we're going to hit some maybe like ladders, like a really competitive 5, 10, 15-yard sprint. Watch practice, see what the base running looks like. Did we hit those things that we needed to? Did we hit those velocities that we needed to? If it's a scrimmage, I'm counting max velocity exposures, and then guys that don't get enough, which for us, we're trying to get 4 at least every kind of game like situation we're in. If we don't get at least 4 at the end of that scrimmage, can I get in a couple buildups and just kind of top it off?
How are you counting those? Is that a physical thing, like you are visually counting them, or are you guys wearing a catapult? Are you guys having some monitoring system to like monitor this? Or is it just like, hey, that guy ran fast, check mark.
Yeah, I have a box here under my desk, and it is catapult, and it's unopened. um, so it's not catapult. I would like to use it, and I think that we're going to experiment with it this spring. But I've gotten some mixed yeses or nos on whether we're gonna do it and invest in it. And like, I mean, I've already kind of led to I run a lot of numbers and we test a lot of things. And it's what I like. I really like the research and stuff of it. I like the numbers and everything like that. And then obviously record, rank, publish is probably a big piece of our intent and our buy-in and kind of my culture in the weight room, kind of knowing where you stack up all the time. With that, a lot of work behind the scenes and a lot of time spent here, especially if golf lifts in the morning, hitters lift before practice. I go to practice, pitchers lift after practice. Like, I'm here a lot. And so all that to say, if it's important for us as a staff and as a program, a baseball program, then I'm all about doing whatever. If it's adding GPS, if it's not, like, whatever we're going to do, I'm all about it. But right now it's not a priority, potentially, probably a little bit of gray area there. But so at the same time, if it ever becomes that, we'll definitely use it and I'll definitely dive into it. So to answer your question, it is a visual manual understanding and count of this. This is about 90% max velocity because of the situation. So the examples that I always use, if a guy is laying down a bunt for a base hit, that's a hard 90. That's 30 yards. That's 90+% max velo. If a guy grounds into a ground ball, and for us, one of the staples in our program is hard 90s. There's a lot of things on Twitter, even dating back to when Coach B was at Central Michigan. But when we put the ball in play, we're going to run hard, and we should be. So if it's a ground ball to the shortstop, if our guy's busting it down the line, that's a max velocity exposure. For us, stolen base attempts are going to be, because it's going to be about an 18 to 20 yard sprint. And I time a lot of our 18 to 20 yard sprints. Like, I had a guy today hit 22.5 miles an hour in 20 yards. So that's 90% max velocity. So that guy for sure is going to get that as a count. Any double, ball in the gap, home to second, that's going to be max velocity. First to third, second to home, first to home, triples, those are all max velocity exposures. Our outfielders get a bunch of them because any balls in the gap and or down the line, they're going to get. Our infielders get less of them, but if they've got to really book it to back of a base or weak fly ball into the outfield and they're really cooking, max velocity exposure. And then our catchers sneakily get some, or quite a few, because in full gear, they sprint their ass all the way down behind first base to cover the throw if nobody's on base. So I count them in that kind of way. And last year we found a lot of success because we had young guys, freshmen that weren't playing a lot or hardly at all early in the season. And so when they're not getting those max velocity exposures, I'm topping it off throughout the weekend and throughout the week to make sure that we're getting at least 12.
12
And
a
that's
week.
12 per week is what I
Nice.
really want. And it's again, like, I give some guys the option, is what I did this fall a little bit more, where it was like, look, you can bust ass for 20 yards, or you can do a nice smooth like 40 where I want you to feel really smooth but fast from 30 to 40. So like a 30-yard build flying 10 type thing. I'm not timing those because it's like right before a game or right after a game or right at the end of practice or whatever. But I'm trying to get 12 in game situations, not counting what's in practice, because then every workload is about the same. All of our outfielders are all working on balls in the gap. I'm not going to count those. We're all doing that. Coach Winsky's out there with a pitching machine launched up at 45 degrees, hammering balls at 120 miles an hour, fucking running into the fence and shit, right? So like all those guys are getting those exposures. I just need to know that that's happening so that I'm not going to sprint those guys on that day, or even maybe the day after. But in game, I want to get at least 12. So I'm trying to get them around those games. So if it's pregame, postgame, day after, sometimes for these guys, I'll do that. And essentially it's our way of like topping off kind of our speeds. And the reason that I say it worked really well last year was because our now starting first baseman and right fielder ended up playing the second half of the season for us and jumped right in and had absolutely no issues in terms of soft tissue injuries, stolen bait. Like it jumped right in, good to go, and it wasn't hey, we need to make sure that they can like, hit 2 miles like soccer or lacrosse. Like, hey, like, they average 5 or 7 miles. Like they need to get this running in. Luckily for us, it's not a distance issue. It's a max velocity exposure and number issue. So really trying to make sure that we hit those volumes, but it's sprint volume. It's not time on feet or, whatever total distance running and stuff.
Dude, that's a super cool way to kind of calculate that, because I think like I've never actually like heard it talked about in that way in baseball, because the thing in baseball, they're saying you need to sprint them because the only time people sprint is in the outfield. But so like but you were saying they were hitting like 22 miles an hour in a 20-yard dash. Like what are some of the speeds you're catching on these like stolen base drills? Like when you're timing that, like what are you hitting there?
Some of this shit. Hold on, let me look, just because this guy today ran and I was just like, dude, you're a monster. He literally ran 22.48 miles an hour.
And what was that? What was that for? Was that the stolen base one?
No, that was it was a 20-yard sprint today in Metcons on our indoor track.
What time was
Jesus.
So we did a 15-yard. It was a 20-yard sprint, like dead ass.
Okay,
Put your head
yep,
down
yep.
and go. Right. It's not because sometimes I think it's misleading when you say build float or like build fly. It's just straight up. We're just timing the last 5 because that's the fastest point, and it's also the most accurate time. Whereas sometimes that 10, it's a little bit longer. So like you're still accelerating. So your times are what speed did you actually hit? If we timed as 10, it wouldn't be as fast because the calculation is over 10 yards. It's it's 10 divided by split time times 2.05 versus 5 divided by that time times 2.05. So anyways, it's just a more accurate way to tell what actual top speed they hit is to do a 5-yard split time. And I learned that from Les Spellman's. He had, I think it's Speed Pillars or Art of Acceleration. He included that in his course. So I've been using 5-yard splits for the last 7 or 8 years. So anyways, so he hit a 5-yard split of 0.456 seconds, with a 15-yard excel. So
Dude, I'm gonna
essentially,
run these 5-yard splits at the gym. We've never ran a 5-yard sprint. Or a 5-yard split. It's always been the
yeah,
10.
yeah. So a 5-yard split that's equal to 20 miles an hour is 5-1-2.
5-1-2.
So
That's kind of the gold standard.
yeah, our gold standard. I literally, since we're running, so I got the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit sign, and so like if we hit that in training, we're gonna sign it.
Hell yeah, dude.
And so yeah, 20 is fast. I think 20 is a really good number. The fastest guy that I've ever had hit let's see, I know his split number. Fastest guy I ever had hit he hit in 30 yards. So it was a 25-yard build, timing the last 5. So 30-yard sprint, timing the last 5. He hit a 0.43, and it was equivalent to like 23.6 miles an hour.
0.3 is ridiculous, dude. That
Now,
is wild.
Now, Grant, and it's in 30 yards. And I was talking to one of our track and field coaches, and he was like, well, we do meters. I got to do the math on it. And like, he sat there and he like gets on his phone for a second, and he looks up at me and he goes, is he still here? Like kind of excited. And I was like, he got drafted by the Dodgers last year. And then he was like, but he was a unicorn. I mean, this kid he set the MLB combine vertical jump record. Here, he jumped hands on hips on hawk and force plates 30.8. He ran 23 something miles an hour in 30 yards. Deadlifted like 700 pounds at like 190. He's just a freak. Like, he's one of one. Like, even my next fastest guy this year, or my next highest jump this year it's 5 inches lower, right? Or 4 inches
That's
lower.
wild.
So like, he's just one of one, right? And he got drafted by the Dodgers in the 3rd round. Like, when he went to the combine, he went to the MLB combine, he was supposed to be like projected like 8 to 10, and goes to the combine, and literally my phone was blowing up because people are like, hey, did he have a great weekend, or is this actually what he does? And I'm like, yeah, he's a freak. And so he went in the 3rd to the Dodgers. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't even know what the original question was, but yes, we do 5s, and the guys know the time now. If we did 10s, like, we could, and we'll time, like, I've got 10-yard excels. I literally just have my sheet up here because I was working on it. We've got 10-yard excels. We've got total times 2 as well. The base running, I want to say, so like my fastest 10-yard split was a 157, but like we're starting in the lasers.
Yep.
So at first movement it starts. So best 10-yard split was a 157. When we did the base running, I gotta look at that. When we did the base running, our fastest guy ran a fastest speed hit, and this is with it's a 77-foot sprint. So, well, it's a 77 feet, right? So the way that we time the sprints, or the steel starts, we start and time them at first movement. We do hand time and lasers, and it's 77 feet, but that doesn't that includes your slide. So
and the
really,
77 feet is because of the lead off or whatever.
13-foot lead. Yeah.
Yep.
So we typically will do a 13-foot lead. And so last year, our base running coach is the best in the country, and I will argue that to this day. Unbelievable guy. He's an absolute character, absolute gem, and he has done an unbelievable job. We broke the stolen base record here last year. We were number 1 in the country in bunt, because he does short game, everything short game. So bunt base hits, everything. So we were number 1 in the country in Power 4 in bunt base hits. Might have been total in the country, even with all the little schools. And then stolen bases, I think we only finished behind Louisville in Power 4, and primarily because they played all the way into the College World Series. So like, we broke the stolen base record last year. So like, whatever, we do a lot of stuff. We do a lot of vaults, but our typical stationary lead is 13 feet. So we'll have the guys start at 13 feet. We'll set up the timing gates right in front of them. We'll also hand time just to run all the numbers and have them both. I'll time this at the starting position. Coach Winsky will time at the slide, and I'll time from when I see them hit the bag, and he'll time from when he sees them hit the bag. So we have us two timing angles, and then we've also got the lasers. And so from there, we have a pretty good idea of how fast we're running. And the lasers are set up literally right in front of the bag. So when they slide in and their hand breaks that laser, that's when it stops. So it's as accurate as we can possibly get it. Our fastest guy ran 20.4 miles an hour in a stolen base. The time was 3:24. So the way that we do kind of the math is we know that a good pop time is like 1:09, like really good is 1:09, but 2 seconds. Let's just say average 2 seconds. So that means that a pitcher needs to be like 1:03 to the plate. And so what our coaches are doing every time these guys are throwing, if they're in the stretch and they'll watch on film, like I lived with one of the assistant coaches and he was timing how long they are to the
It's
plate.
literally a
Like
math equation. That is sick.
it's a math equation. So if a guy is 1:04 or 1:05 to the plate, and we can assume that the pop time is 2 seconds, or we know it because our no, I literally feel like I'm kissing our ass, but like no staff watches more film than our staff. I swear. Trades is always watching film because I lived with him for a semester, and so we know that if he's got a 2 second pop time and he's 1:05 to the plate, I literally have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 guys that can steal a base on him 12 out of 12 times. Every single time those guys can steal a base on that guy. And they don't even need, they just need to go when he picks his leg up, right?
Yeah, that is so sick.
Granted, if we have some slower guys, we teach our guys to vault. Essentially, it's just like a moving lead. And so if you watch us on film, our guys are a lot of time moving side to side, up and down a little bit. They're always trying to get a jump. If they can jump up and get that time, that 3-2 turns into a 3-1. And no one is throwing out a 3-1 runner. So for us, it's all this essentially, like you said, it's a math equation. Like, how can we figure out how long is it going to take us to get from point A to point B? And we know that it takes these guys this long to throw it from the mound to home. And this catcher with a perfect throw takes 2 seconds to catch it and throw it all the way to second. Granted, is it a high fastball? Is it a curveball in the dirt? Like all these other variables. And that's why we are really aggressive on the base pass because A, we're fast and we train really fast. But also we know how long it takes guys to throw. We know if they're accurate, if they've got an accurate arm or they're not from the outfield. We're going to push it a little bit. We know cuts and relays. If a shortstop's relaying the ball in, if he's a good relaying from left field versus not, and he's better at relaying from right field, maybe we're a little more aggressive from left field. So we're always trying. It's kind of like Moneyball. We're always trying to find a way to get like one extra base because that one extra base, maybe that one extra run in that one regional game against that one team that makes it to the College World Series instead of us. So it's just a numbers game essentially.
Dude, that is so sick. And it has to be so nice as a player when you're on base and you're like, dude, mathematically, they laid this out for me. Like, so I can just go. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that has to eliminate a lot of the performance anxiety and the issues there.
It literally is like green light. Like we've got 5 guys that are no doubt green light guys. It's like we don't care who's up there. If you want to go, you go. If you don't, cool. We're good. If we tell you to go, you better fucking go. But like we've got 5 guys that are no doubt. We've got another 5 guys that are like, hey, against a lot of guys, we're going to be able to steal. And then we've probably got another kind of back half 5 guys where it's like, hey, you get a good jump. We can go. Like one of our slowest guys in the summer, I think he was in the Appy League this summer. I think he stole 18 bases. He was like 18 of 19. And it was because he's so good now because of our base running coach. He's so good at the timing and being able to vault at the right time and get the right jump. And if you're 1-5 to the plate, you're fucked because like we're going to steal that base.
Dude, that's sick. All right, pulling it out of the velocity side of things with the rank record, published stuff that you have and everything you're doing there. How do you do the same thing when it comes to rotational power? Like, how are we driving intense? I know that was a big piece of like what you do with rotational power, especially with things like, let's say it's a med ball throw where you kind of have the people where they just half-ass throw a med ball versus like throwing it hard. And like, dude, I just wish, maybe you have a tool for this, but like fucking get a pocket radar that can read a med ball, bro. But why pocket radars don't read them? Pisses me off. But like, do you have anything cool like that to where you're able to like read some of that stuff and like measure some of that stuff to draw intent where you're rate recording, publishing in that side of things, if that's like another big pillar of your training?
I tried to get our pocket radars, and it has to be, I think it's 25 miles an hour is the minimum, and that's
Yeah.
the
So,
reason.
so
So
anything
with
like over a 10 didn't work for us, pretty much.
yeah, and so but there's a lot of value in throwing a ball over 10, right? So
Yeah.
it's like, do I not do it now? Um, I have always tried to incentivize guys essentially to break the ball, and it wasn't here, and I don't want to because honestly, I know for a fact. I say this now, and if these guys listen to this specific part, I know that I'm going to start getting chirped. But I used to offer guys at schools that I was at before. I used to offer the first guy to break a med ball, I'll give him $100, and just those guys were just throwing the absolute piss out of the ball, like any and every chance that they got. They're like, dude, I cannot wait till one of these guys gets $100. And at Utah Valley, I did have a guy break a med ball, and I did pay him $100. Low key, like won't say who, right? But NCAA, right? NIL. But at the end of the day, like I am so lucky to have the group that I have because typically vast 95% of the time, they are going to run through a brick wall for me, which is great. And it doesn't have to be for me. Like they just want it. They're really hungry to win and they're really hungry to get better. And I'm just really lucky to have that. And I think culture and recruiting and the type of guys you bring in, like I think all those things play a role, but I really do think that a lot of it goes back to they know how much work I put into like what we're doing and why and the explanation behind it. I think that it has just turned into like this is what we do and this is the intent at which we do it. So I try and measure things when I can. I know that there is a device. Obviously, there's accelerometer that they have that are in certain med balls, but you can't afford to buy that like and like outfit your whole facility with like med balls that have accelerometers in them, right? That's just not realistic, at least not here. Maybe at Alabama or Texas, but I think when we can measure things, we will. Um, and then just the constant reminder of like, again, I'll tell guys this isn't your swing. Like when you come in here, I'll tell golf this especially. We're not swinging iron. I want you to throw the med ball like your life depends on it. I want you to try and break the wall. I want you to try and break the ball. I want you to whatever. Don't worry about how it looks. Just take this object and throw it. Because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get you to throw an external object at a higher velocity than you swing your club or even maybe than your bat, right? Depending on your bat speed. And depending on the weight of it, kind of how that works out of the ratio. So like I'm trying to get guys that just have maximal intent with it and don't always worry about how it looks. That's why I like the anchors a lot. And that's why I'm looking forward to getting our Kaiser functional trainer set up. Because with like your typical cable, you can't pull it hard enough or fast enough because there's going to be a little bit of a lag in the cable and then it's going to come slamming back down. And I've actually done a video before of like how to put bands and add band resistance to the cable column so that you can pull it a little bit faster or a lot faster and it keeps the cable down. So it takes that lag out of it and it doesn't trash your cables. So shameless plug. But at the end of the day though, like, I think it's just the intent of it and like the buy-in piece in the background. But anytime that we can measure stuff, we will. Like any overhead throw, we've got radar guns out and stuff like that. So,
Dude, I thought so when I saw your Kaisers before, I just assumed you had the cable ones. Those cable ones for rotational stuff they're sick, dude. Like
yeah,
Welty has them at his place, and the amount of times we've just like gone and ripped for like 15 minutes and like trying to push that peak number. I think you're gonna get some really cool stuff out of that.
yeah, we have. So we have them. We just the flooring's getting done like in 3 weeks, and so we're gonna
They're like
bolt
super
down.
intense to set up, aren't they?
Yeah, and you got to bolt them down and everything. And so we
Yeah.
knew that we were getting new flooring when we bought them. When football moved out of the building, so we bought them, and then they've been in storage since because we can't bolt them down until we get the new flooring in. So, but until then, like we do have the Voltras from Beyond Power, and that's where we've done our measurements and our testing. But once we get the Kaisers, I'll use those instead because the Voltras are awesome in a lot of different ways. The portability of them is great, but the actual velocity when you're trying to pull it that hard and that fast, it can be really hard on the machine, but it can also be like it lags, like it grabs on you. like it's not a smooth pull. Whereas I've always appreciated the fact that Kaiser is always super smooth, whether it's Kaiser squat, whatever they do, all their equipment, because it's just air pressure, is super smooth. Like you can grab that thing, and if it's light or fat or light or heavy, when you pull it or push it or whatever the case is, it always is just really smooth. Um, so yeah, we're looking forward to having them.
Dude, you got to send me some of the stuff that you end up doing with that because I geek out over that. With that, it made me think, do you value when you're working rotational power, are you working more on the overspeed side of things or more on the strength side of things? And like, and working through, do you find a balance there? Like, what's kind of your approach and what do you value or what do you think is the most important?
I think that both are important. If I had to choose one over the other, I would just do heavier strength-based things or slower velocity things because again, their sport is so fast. So if you're making me choose one, I know that wasn't your question, but like if you're making me choose one, I would rather go with higher resistance and lower velocities. And really, like we do a bunch of stuff where we, whether it's half kneeling, holding a medicine ball, working on post or anterior pelvic tilt, like fixing it almost or not fixing, but let's see, posterior pelvic tilt. So like essentially glute activation, holding a med ball, and then like quite a bit of resistance, even like if we're seated or half kneeling and just trying to separate hips and shoulders. I'll go with the heavier or higher resistance things because I think that the velocities are typically like that box is checked with the sport. But I really like both. And the buy-in of doing things that are baseball-ish or look and feel like my swing, they always do those well or do them with high intent. And so I'm going to keep them in there if I can.
Do you have some examples of that? Are you into any of like the weighted implements or like Javelin type stuff, or is it still when you say overspeed, is it still weight room overspeed? Like what's your kind of approach there?
So we'll do kind of like a AFSM, like dynamic banded rotation, because
Mm.
honestly, I even the anchors are probably a little bit too much resistance. A Kaiser I could probably get away with once we have it. But it's essentially a dynamic rotation back and forth as hard and as fast as you can go both ways. And the only complaint is the fact that the band will kind of like start to whip quite a bit and it'll like kind of whip you in the side. So it's dynamic acceleration and deceleration both ways. Same thing with like a plate swing, so like a half kneeling or split stance plate swing, and the fascial lines. But at the end of the day, we're just doing chops and trying to go and accelerate up and across both ways, down and up. Um, those are kind of the fast things. Anything with the anchors that we can do, we're just gonna grab them and rip them and swing them and make them look as much like your swing as possible.
And those
And
hold up pretty
really,
well with that stuff. I've been thinking about
no,
buying
they've
some
been
of those.
they've been yeah, they've been great. And they're
Yeah.
the cheapest, the cheapest option to do it, and they pull really smooth. Um, like I said, the Volt they don't read anything out, which sucks. And the only other downside to them is I feel like because I was talking to Andrew Nilo about this, I was texting him like last week, and you go from like you add like 5 pounds on each side, and it's great. You add 5 or 10 more on each side or one side, fine. You get to a point like 40, 50 pounds, you put one more like five on, and it feels like it goes from like 40 pounds to like 85.
Mhm.
And then it just gets really heavy. And it because it's just a friction based resistance. And I feel like there's just like whatever level it is, as soon as you get to that level, it just gets heavy as shit. And like we just don't go that heavy. I think we stick typically 40 pounds and below of what they call 40 pounds. Um, so we'll do those. And then Hunter Lakey at Georgia Southern, he's been talking to me a lot about like PVC pipe swings. Um, and so I want to say he's been out there with guys taking PVC pipes and just swinging the shit out of them back and forth. It's not even like
The
pretend
daddy
like it's a
hats.
bat. Yeah. And it's literally just both ways, just swing the shit out of it. And that's kind of your overspeed where it's like a really light implement and you're just contracting and relaxing really, really fast.
Dude, Ben Baguette got me on those 3 years ago. I am telling you, it's the feel of them. I don't know about the science behind it, but the feel you get from that exercise, man, there is nothing. Like I want to go hit the farthest balls I've ever hit. I do it as my warm up almost every single day with softball. It is such a like the ability to like whip that PVC pipe. It's such a money move.
I want to buy PVC pipes that make sense that I can tape the end of that are just for that. like we have PVC pipes, but they're like mobility sticks and they've got a rubber end on them. And then like I have somebody swinging them around and then the rubber end comes off and snaps somebody in the face. And then it's like, what are you doing swinging PVC pipes, right? Like I had a girl when I first got here, she was redshirting because she transferred a semester at golf, and she brought in her speed sticks and then brought in the little radar that measures them.
Yep.
And in between our sets of like heavier chops, we would start every lift with kind of like a French contrast type thing where we were doing like a heavy resisted, like 3D strap, kind of like a pelvic rotation. We would go into some kind of like cable column chop, and then we would grab that and then throw a med ball. And we were swinging it, and she added like probably in that until she was playing back again in the fall, I think she added like 5-6 miles an hour on her club head speed, which I want to say every mile an hour translates to, I think, 3 yards a carry.
Damn.
So for her, she's coming back and she's hitting the ball like 15 yards further plus. And like you hit every ball 15 yards further, your strokes, you're like the number of strokes you take will go down. And I think that's where golf specifically, because I do golf here also, trying to get them to understand it's like, look, like I know you guys don't love lifting, but like if you guys could hit the ball further, you'd take less strokes and you'd win more matches, and then we'd all get rings. So let's do that. So it's like I think everybody's motivation is kind of interesting for it. But even with golf, like we do some kind of rotation. We do multiple rotational components every single lift, no matter what.
Hell yeah. Tristan, do you got anything for him? I have a last question of the podcast, so I don't want to.
No, it's been super sweet so far. I want to hear the last one.
Yeah. I'm gonna reapply to get 4 more years of eligibility just so I can come train with you for my softball swing. But last question of the podcast. We're clip farming here. Should pitchers bench press? End the debate here. I see it everywhere on Twitter, dude.
Yeah, debate over. Pitchers should bench. And then I guess I would caveat that with, if you prefer dumbbell, I don't care. If you prefer neutral bar, you like barbell, great. You want to go underhand barbell, I don't give a shit. Like just do it. Like take the implement and push. Yeah, you got to press. And then I would say that actually I'm a bigger fan of incline, because the pushback against bench has always been the scapular like retraction and then like that being locked in under the bench. And so you have less scapular freedom in the bench. And that's what causes issues within like the like humerus and like kind of like grinding in the socket. So incline has less direct gravity pressure down. So you have more scapular movement in an incline bench. And if you really hate that, load the shit out of your pushups, because we do that a lot too.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, heavy presses are going to, like, I will run the numbers right now if I have to. Heavy bench will increase throwing velocity.
Let's go.
It works for shot put. It works for discus. It works for javelin. Like every other sport that does measurements.
Baseball's a magic implement, though.
Yeah, well, baseball's the one, right? Like I had softball. They bench goes up, throwing velocities go up. Like, come on. And they throw underhand. Like, they should bench. And if for some reason it hurts your shoulder or something like that, don't make excuses. Find an alternative that you can do. I hate that shit.
Yeah, dude. And it's every time it's like black or white. It's just yes or no. I'm like, dude.
No, we do so much gray. Like there's so much gray area in my programming. So
like, yeah, dude, this was dope. I have a ton of pages of notes. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thank you guys for listening. Keep chopping wood.
Thank you for listening. Join us next week as we dive down another rabbit hole. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a 5-star rating. Follow us on Instagram at Austin Yoakum to stay updated on future podcast guests. Keep chopping wood.